The man in dusty boots stepped into the marble-floored jet dealership. Two receptionists glanced up, exchanged a smirk, and returned to their screens. His shirt was clean but well-worn, tucked into faded jeans with a brass belt buckle shaped like the state of Georgia. A trucker hat sat slightly tilted on his head. He walked slowly, taking it all in, the gleaming private jets parked behind the glass, the glittering sales lounge filled with well-dressed men sipping designer coffee, and the Art Deco lighting casting long shadows on polished white floors. "Can I help you?" one of the young salesmen asked, still seated, clearly uninterested. "Yes, sir," the man said politely. "I'd like to speak to someone about purchasing a jet." The salesman gave him a once-over, eyes narrowing. "Deliveries are handled in the rear loading zone. This area is for appointments only." "I'm not here for deliveries," the man replied, his southern drawl warm and slow. "I'm here to buy." Another salesman chuckled under his breath. "You mean like a model jet? We don't do toys here, sir." The man nodded, undeterred. "I understand." One of the receptionists handed him a brochure and said, "You might want to take a look at the pricing before you get too excited." She smiled the way someone smiles when they're sure they know something you don't. The man looked at the brochure, nodded again, and tucked it into his shirt pocket. "Appreciate that." They watched as he strolled toward a seating area and sat quietly, pulling out his phone. Nobody offered him coffee. Nobody offered a consultation. The air around him was laced with invisible judgment. They'd already decided who he was and what he wasn't. But the man knew this story. He'd lived it before. His name was Walter Rowe, and he owned more farmland than anyone else in 3 southern counties. His agricultural company specialized in vertical farming, drought-resistant crops, and rural food distribution infrastructure. His innovations had fed entire regions that had been written off as food desert. The week before, he had received a $15 million federal grant to expand his operations. He didn't need a jet for leisure. He needed one to reach tribal communities, underdeveloped rural towns, and international partnership. Time was food. Food was life. And time saved meant lives saved. But all they saw was a poor black man in overalls. Walter had grown up watching his father get turned down for loans that were easily approved for white farmers. He remembered how his uncle's land had been foreclosed on after one missed payment, even though the white family next door got extensions for years. And he remembered his mother crying in the kitchen when they lost half their crops one season and the bank wouldn't listen. He had worked every inch of his land by hand until he could afford machinery. He'd built irrigation systems from scrap. He learned how to code so he could automate his greenhouses. He went to city council meetings that nobody else would attend. He got laughed at, patronized, denied access, and still kept going. His wealth didn't come from inheritance or trust funds. It came from sunburns, sleepless nights, and a stubborn belief that dignity could be built 1 acre at a time. So when they laughed at him today, it wasn't new. But it still burned. He watched the sales team cater to a man in a tailored navy blue suit, offering espresso and custom seating packages for a jet priced at $18 million. Walter could have paid cash today for that same model, but instead, he was offered a pamphlet and a sideways glance. A junior employee came by with a clipboard and asked him if he was waiting for someone. Walter simply said, "No, just looking." The employee didn't ask further. Just nodded, then walked away, clearly relieved he didn't have to engage. Walter opened the brochure, studied the specs, and made quiet notes on his phone. He noted the materials used, fuel efficiency, cargo limits, and runway requirement. His mind wasn't on the insult. It was on the work ahead. On how many food pallets he could carry. On how quickly he could move emergency supplies to communities that hadn't seen a grocery store in 20 years. An older man, seated nearby, watched Walter curiously. He was well-dressed but not flashy. His posture was military, disciplined, composed. He gave Walter a polite nod. Walter nodded back. The two of them struck up a casual conversation about engine types and fuel mileage. Walter spoke with knowledge and passion. The older man raised an eyebrow. "You in aviation?" "No, sir," Walter said. "I'm in food. But I go where the need is, and sometimes need don't wait for roads to get fixed." The older man smiled. "That's an interesting way to put it." Walter returned the smile. "Well, where I'm from, we learn to solve problems ourselves." The older man introduced himself as Gregory, retired from the aviation business after 30 years. Walter didn't elaborate on his own background. Not yet. He listened more than he spoke. But his confidence was unmistakable. He didn't need approval. He needed access. As the hour passed, Walter noticed one of the managers whispering to the receptionist. She glanced over and shook her head. Walter overheard. "No appointment. He's just sitting there." Gregory leaned over and said, "You know they don't think you belong here, right?" Walter nodded slowly. "Yeah. But I figure if I leave now, I'm proving them right." Gregory grinned. "You got patience. Most would have walked out by now." Walter replied, "My whole life's been about waiting for the right moment. Just have to make sure they remember it when it comes." He stood, thanked Gregory for the talk, and walked out calmly, the brochure still tucked into his pocket. Nobody said goodbye. Nobody asked his name. They didn't realize the man they just humiliated had the power to change their business, their image, and maybe even their industry. They'd find out soon enough. 2 days later, Walter Rowe returned, this time with an appointment. The receptionist didn't recognize him. He wore the same kind of clothes, jeans, clean boots, and a work shirt. But now, the name Walter Rowe Enterprises appeared on the dealership schedule, with a private consultation booked under the CEO category. The manager frowned when he saw the name. He glanced toward the door, spotted Walter, then leaned in and whispered, "That can't be the same guy." The receptionist, looking uneasy, checked the ID he'd submitted online. It matched. Slowly, realization settled in. The man they had dismissed was not a janitor, not a delivery guy, not someone wandering in. He was the actual client, and a very wealthy one. The salesman who'd first brushed Walter off tried to intercept, smiling too hard. "Mr. Rowe, so good to see you again. Sorry for the mix-up last time. We weren't sure." Walter didn't let him finish. "Don't worry about it. I was just looking." He smiled, but his eyes didn't. This time, a senior sales executive came forward. Mark Daniels, a man with sharp features, an expensive watch, and years of experience closing deals with Fortune 500 exec. Mark extended his hand. "Mr. Rowe, I'll be personally assisting you today. We're honored to have you." Walter shook his hand, firm and brief. "Appreciate that. Let's get started." They walked past the same jet. Now every assistant and salesperson kept their eyes on Walter. The chatter had shifted. Some of them were scrambling to research who he was. A few whispered fragments passed through the showroom. Top innovator in sustainable farming, government grants, speaker at the AgTech Summit. The same man they laughed at now carried weight. But Walter didn't gloat. He observed, measured, and focused. Mark led him into the private client area, complete with soundproof walls, espresso machines, and panoramic displays. He spoke quickly, peppering his sentences with corporate jargon and elite references, trying to impress Walter with prestige. Walter listened but didn't flinch. He didn't need to be dazzled. He needed to know which aircraft could land on short gravel strips, which one had the best cargo space without compromising fuel efficiency, and which engine models had lower long-term maintenance costs. Mark paused halfway through his pitch. "Forgive me, Mr. Rowe, but you seem incredibly informed already. Have you been looking into aviation for long?" Walter looked at him calmly. "I research everything I spend money on. Don't matter if it's a combine harvester or a jet." Mark chuckled nervously. "Of course. But just to clarify, are you planning to use the jet personally, or hire a flight crew for business?" "I'll fly it myself." Mark blinked. You're a certified pilot? Walter nodded. Private license. Got my training on weekends, and I own a Cessna back home. Use it to check irrigation lines and crop spread. I'm expanding the routes now. That's why I'm here. Mark cleared his throat. Understood. That changes the specs we should look at. Walter smiled slightly. Sure does. What Mark didn't know was that Walter's application to the dealership had been intentional. He had chosen this location after hearing about its reputation for being selective, elitist, even. He had wanted to see it firsthand, and now he was taking mental notes on everything: the language used, the assumptions made, the subtle ways people were measured and dismissed. Halfway through the walkthrough, Gregory, the older man from 2 days earlier, walked into the dealership. He saw Walter and approached with a broad grin. Well, look at you. Didn't know you were coming back so soon. Walter stood and shook his hand. Appreciate the conversation the other day. Helped pass the time. Mark looked puzzled. You two know each other? Gregory laughed. Let's just say I knew something you didn't. Gregory turned to Walter. You making a decision today? Thinking about it. Gregory nodded. Good. This place needs someone to shake things up. Mark chuckled awkwardly. Well, we pride ourselves on elite service here. Gregory's smile faded. That wasn't what I saw 2 days ago. Mark's face stiffened. We had no idea. Exactly, Gregory interrupted. That's the problem. There was a long silence. Mark shifted uncomfortably. Walter spoke up. Let's not drag it out. I came here with a decision already made. I'll take the LX40. Full cargo conversion. Custom fuel storage upgrade. I'll wire the deposit today. Mark straightened. Excellent. That's a wonderful choice. I'll start the paperwork. And one more thing, Walter added. I want it flown to my private airstrip in Valdosta for delivery. You'll meet me there for inspection. Bring the same team that was here 2 days ago. Mark looked confused. The receptionist and sales associates? Walter nodded. All of them. Mark hesitated. Of course, if that's what you prefer. Walter's voice didn't change, but his tone made something clear. This wasn't a request. Also, Walter said, tell your staff they're invited to lunch afterward. We're having barbecue. Thought it might be nice for them to see what real wealth looks like. Gregory chuckled. I might come down there myself. Mark tried to smile, but it was strained. We'll be there, sir. Absolutely. Walter extended his hand again. Appreciate your time. They shook hands, but this time Mark's grip was weak. As Walter left, the same people who had laughed at him just days before watched in silence. No one offered brochures now. No one questioned him. He hadn't raised his voice once. He hadn't confronted them publicly. But he had changed everything. The shame wasn't in what they had said. It was in what they hadn't. It was in the way they had sized up a man by his clothes, his accent, his skin. Walter walked out with the same quiet dignity he'd entered with, and the dealership suddenly felt a little colder. The day of delivery arrived. Walter's private airstrip was nestled in the rolling hills of southern Georgia, a place most would never expect a man with a multi-million-dollar jet to call home. The grass was neatly trimmed, and a small wooden hangar sat quietly by the edge of the field. Beyond it, rows of crops stretched toward the horizon, shimmering golden under the morning sun. The smell of fresh earth mixed with pine and the faint smoke of a distant barbecue. Walter stood beside the runway, watching the sleek jet's shadow grow larger as it descended gracefully. The plane touched down with a soft thud, and the wheels rolled smoothly along the gravel path. The delivery crew, dressed in their crisp uniforms, stepped out, their faces a mixture of professionalism and disbelief. The team that had once doubted him now found themselves standing on his land. Walter greeted them with a warm but measured smile. Welcome to my place. Hope you're ready for that barbecue. The lead salesman, Mark, swallowed hard. He exchanged a glance with the others. Their eyes flicked around the modest but impeccably maintained surroundings. No marble columns, no luxury cars, just a hard-working farmer's domain, quiet but commanding respect. Walter led them toward the hangar. This is where the jet will rest when it's not in the air. I keep everything simple. No frills needed. The team began inspecting the aircraft, running through the checklist Walter had requested. Fuel systems, engine performance, cargo configuration. Walter watched their movements carefully, noting their surprise at the rugged modifications tailored for his rural use. The jet wasn't just a symbol of wealth, it was a tool designed with purpose. Mark spoke cautiously. You really plan to fly this yourself? Walter nodded. I do. Learned the ropes over years of necessity. You can't trust everyone to handle your business for you, especially when you're out here. One of the younger staff members whispered, I thought this was a joke at first. A farmer buying a private jet. Walter caught the remark without turning. People will underestimate you when you don't fit their mold. It's on them, not you. The team stood in silence, the weight of that truth settling over them. They had come expecting arrogance, flash, and entitlement. Instead, they found humility, hard work, and pride. As the inspection ended, Walter clapped his hands. All right, let's head over to the pit. Barbecue's almost ready. Walking toward a wooden pavilion, the team's curiosity was piqued by the lively aroma of smoked meats and the sound of country blues playing softly from an old radio. Several neighbors and friends greeted Walter warmly, waving as if this was an everyday event. Walter introduced everyone. This here is my family, folks who helped me get this far. And these, he gestured toward the sales team, are the folks who thought I was just another guy off the street. Laughter broke the tension. Walter's wife handed out drinks. The atmosphere shifted from formal to familiar. The team began asking questions. Not about jets or sales quotas, but about the farm, the crops, and Walter's innovations that earned him the grant. Mark, ever the professional, asked, How did you get started in farming? Walter took a slow sip of his sweet tea. My granddaddy taught me. Said, Son, the soil don't lie. I've been working these lands since I was a boy, trying to make it better every day. That's what got the attention from the grant folks. One of the sales associates leaned in. So the jet's more than just for business? Walter smiled. It's for freedom. For my family. For the legacy we're building. The conversation drifted to challenges Walter had faced, discrimination in agricultural circles, the uphill battle to secure funding, the assumptions people made about his abilities. The team listened, some heads bowed in shame, others wide-eyed with newfound respect. Mark cleared his throat. I guess we underestimated you. Walter shrugged. You weren't the first. Won't be the last. But it's not about them. It's about what you do with the doubts. A woman on the team asked, How do you handle it all? The judgment, the setbacks. Walter's eyes shone with resilience. You don't let it define you. You keep pushing, keep growing. I mentor young folks around here. Show them there's a place for everyone who works hard. That's leadership. There was a moment of silence before another voice joined in. You're changing the culture here. Not just for farmers, but for everyone who's been overlooked. Walter nodded. Advocacy isn't just speeches or politics. It's what you live every day. Inclusion is showing up, being present, and lifting others as you climb. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the field. Walter took the chance to share the bigger picture behind his success. The innovation grant wasn't just money, it was a responsibility. A call to transform the way agriculture worked, to make it sustainable, equitable, and profitable for generations. He looked each person in the eye. Legacy isn't what you leave behind in dollars. It's the change you make in people's lives. The team felt the weight of his words. This wasn't a man flaunting wealth. It was a man redefining it. As the barbecue wound down, Walter pulled out a small notebook. Inside were sketches and plans, ideas for drones, water conservation, crop rotation improvements. He invited the team to see how technology and tradition could blend to create something better. One by one, they asked if they could visit the farm, learn more, and even help with mentoring programs. Walter smiled, realizing this was the true victory, not the jet but the bridge he was building. Before the sun set, Walter stood at the edge of the runway again, looking out over the fields that had sustained his family for generations. The jet gleamed beside him, ready to take him anywhere, but his heart stayed firmly rooted here. Mark approached quietly. "I never expected to meet someone like you. You've taught me a lot today." Walter clapped him on the shoulder. "Good. Now go out there and change the way you see people." The team climbed back into their vehicle, quieter than when they arrived. Something inside them had shifted, a cultural shift born not from lectures, but from living proof. Walter watched until their taillights disappeared down the gravel road. He knew the battle wasn't over. Racism, prejudice, and narrow minds would still confront him. But today was a step, a moment of transformation and inspiration. He turned toward the house, ready to write the next chapter, not just for himself, but for everyone who dared to dream beyond limits. Walter's story didn't end with the barbecue or the jet landing softly on his private airstrip. It was only the beginning of a new chapter, one that would test his resilience and leadership on a much larger stage. Word spread quickly through the local community and beyond about the black farmer who had bested elite sales teams with nothing but Southern charm and unshakable confidence. The story became a beacon of inspiration, but also a lightning rod for prejudice and backlash. As soon as the initial excitement faded, Walter found himself navigating a storm of resistance from those who refused to accept his success. Certain influential figures in the agricultural industry dismissed his innovations as lucky accidents or gimmick. Others questioned whether a farmer from his background should be operating high-tech equipment or owning assets traditionally reserved for the wealthy elite. These covert attacks, fueled by bias and discrimination, were meant to undermine his achievements and silence his growing voice. Walter refused to retreat. He understood that accountability was not just a word, it was a responsibility to himself and those who believed in him. He began organizing community meetings and outreach programs aimed at educating others about his vision for modern farming, emphasizing sustainability, diversity, and equality. He became a mentor to young black farmers, sharing his knowledge freely and encouraging them to pursue their ambitions relentlessly. This advocacy sparked a cultural shift within his region. Slowly but surely, people started to see beyond old prejudices. They began to recognize the value of innovation and leadership coming from unexpected places. Walter's farm transformed into a hub for collaboration, where traditional farming techniques merged seamlessly with cutting-edge technology. This blending of old and new created a model that challenged long-held assumptions about who could lead and succeed. Facing this resistance also taught Walter an important lesson about forgiveness. Rather than harbor resentment toward those who doubted or belittled him, he chose to extend empathy. He invited skeptics to visit the farm, see the work firsthand, and engage in open dialogues about their concerns and misconceptions. This approach softened many hearts and minds, turning potential enemies into allies. Walter's journey was marked by moments of crisis, but each challenge strengthened his resolve. When a particularly harsh drought struck the region, threatening crops and livelihoods, he mobilized resources quickly, using his network to provide aid and support to struggling farmers. His actions underscored true leadership, not just in times of ease but amid adversity. Through every obstacle, Walter's story became more than just a personal triumph. It became a symbol of transformation for an entire community. His success demonstrated that resilience and growth were possible despite systemic barriers. It encouraged others to confront prejudice head-on and to forge paths where none seemed available. As the farm flourished, so did Walter's influence. He was invited to speak at agricultural conferences and innovation summits, where his story resonated deeply with audiences hungry for change. His voice became a catalyst for discussions on diversity and inclusion in industries long dominated by tradition and exclusion. Walter used these platforms to push for policy changes that would open doors for marginalized groups, advocating for equal access to grants, education, and technology. Despite the spotlight, Walter remained grounded. His legacy wasn't about fame or fortune but about leaving a lasting impact that would outlive him. He invested in mentorship programs for youth, ensuring that the next generation would inherit not only fertile land but also fertile minds ready to innovate and lead. Walter's story inspired countless individuals who had been told they didn't belong or weren't good enough. His example proved that change starts with courage, the courage to face discrimination without surrender, to embrace accountability, and to extend forgiveness even when wronged. It showed that true heroism lies in lifting others as you rise. Through his advocacy and example, Walter helped spark a broader cultural shift that began to challenge systemic racism in rural America and beyond. His farm became a beacon of hope and progress, demonstrating that diversity and inclusion are not just ideals but practical necessities for growth and sustainability. Walter's transformation from a humble farmer to a respected leader was a testament to the power of resilience and vision. He embodied the belief that equality is achievable when people are willing to challenge norms and embrace empathy. His journey reminded everyone that success is sweeter when it paves the way for others. As Walter looked toward the future, he remained committed to nurturing the seeds of change he had planted. The jet on his airstrip symbolized more than personal achievement; it was a vehicle for outreach, education, and continued advocacy. Walter planned to use it to connect with remote communities, spreading his message of hope, inclusion, and transformation. The shocking turn of events had set in motion a wave of growth that rippled far beyond his farm's borders. Walter's story was no longer just about a black farmer buying a jet. It was about breaking barriers, reshaping perceptions, and inspiring a movement toward a more just and equitable world. Each day brought new challenges, but Walter met them with the same steady resolve that had carried him this far. His journey was a living testament to the enduring power of human spirit, proving that when resilience meets opportunity, the possibilities are limitless. Walter's legacy was clear. True leadership is defined not by wealth or status, but by the impact one has on others. His life's work stood as a powerful reminder that transformation begins with belief in oneself, in others, and in the possibility of a better tomorrow. Walter's story continued to unfold in ways no one could have predicted. The jet he purchased became more than a symbol of success; it was a tool for outreach and change. With it, he expanded his vision far beyond his farm's borders, embarking on a mission to connect, educate, and empower marginalized communities throughout the region. He understood that true transformation required more than personal triumph; it demanded systemic change. Walter used his newfound platform to advocate for policy reforms targeting the barriers black farmers and other minorities faced daily. Access to funding, land rights, and technological resources were hot topics he brought to local governments, agricultural boards, and national forums. Walter's approach was both strategic and heartfelt. He combined hard data with powerful storytelling, highlighting the resilience and innovation present in communities too often overlooked. His testimony prompted several legislators to rethink outdated policies that perpetuated inequality. Though change was slow, Walter's persistence ensured that progress became inevitable. Meanwhile, on his farm, Walter cultivated a culture of mentorship and growth. He established programs where experienced farmers trained young aspirants, focusing not only on techniques but on leadership, business acumen, and community building. Walter knew that lifting others was key to sustaining any movement. These initiatives fostered a sense of belonging and pride among participants, many of whom had felt invisible in the agricultural world. Walter's commitment to diversity and inclusion deepened. He partnered with universities and tech companies to bring cutting-edge tools to rural areas, reducing the digital divide that had long hindered growth. Drone technology, AI-driven crop management, and sustainable farming practices became accessible to more farmers under Walter's guidance. This fusion of tradition and innovation redefined what modern farming looked like and who could participate in it. His leadership style inspired admiration and loyalty. Walter led by example, always approachable, always humble, yet unyieldingly determined. He believed empathy was a strength, not a weakness. That belief shaped his relationships and strengthened the community's cohesion. However, Walter's journey was not without opposition. Some entrenched interests felt threatened by the shift he represented. Powerful agribusinesses and influential figures who had long profited from exclusionary practices mounted subtle campaigns to discredit him. Rumors circulated. Attempts were made to marginalize his voice in public debates. Yet Walter remained steadfast. Rather than retaliate with bitterness, he chose accountability and transparency. He openly addressed the challenges, acknowledging mistakes and learning publicly. This honesty earned him respect even among critics. Walter's resilience in the face of adversity became a lesson in leadership itself, showing that growth is forged in the fires of challenge. Walter also understood the importance of forgiveness in fostering true reconciliation. He invited former adversaries to the farm, hosting dialogues aimed at bridging divide. These sessions were not easy. Tensions ran high at times. But Walter's patience and genuine desire to listen helped chip away at long-standing prejudices. These efforts sparked tangible cultural shifts in the community. Attitudes began to change as people witnessed the tangible benefits of inclusion and diversity. Local schools incorporated agricultural innovation into their curriculums, inspired by Walter's story. Youth from diverse backgrounds felt encouraged to pursue careers in farming and technology. Walter's legacy of mentorship planted seeds of inspiration that would grow for generations. Walter's advocacy extended beyond agriculture. He championed broader social justice causes, leveraging his influence to raise awareness about racial inequality, education gaps, and economic disparities. His speeches often emphasized interconnectedness, that justice in one area uplifts all others. The jet remained a powerful symbol. Walter used it to attend national and international conferences, networking with leaders and innovators. Each trip reinforced his belief in the power of collaboration. Walter forged alliances with organizations dedicated to equity and sustainability, building a coalition united by shared goals. Back on the farm, life thrived. Walter introduced new sustainable practices that balanced productivity with environmental stewardship. Crop diversity increased, soil health improved. The farm became a model of how innovation and respect for the land could coexist. Walter's personal growth paralleled that of his farm. He developed a deep understanding of the complexities involved in social change and leadership. He embraced humility, recognizing that he was part of a larger movement. This mindset allowed him to inspire others without overshadowing their voices. Throughout, empathy remained at the heart of Walter's mission. He prioritized listening, truly listening, to the hopes, fears, and experiences of those around him. This openness fostered trust and empowered community members to take ownership of their futures. Walter's journey was a testament to the power of resilience, transformation, and shared humanity. From a black farmer facing racism and humiliation, he became a symbol of possibility and progress. His story illuminated the path forward, proving that equality is not just an ideal but an achievable reality when courage meets purpose. As Walter looked ahead, he saw a future where barriers crumbled, where opportunity flourished for all, regardless of background. The jet was no longer just a vehicle. It was a beacon guiding the way toward a more inclusive, just world. Walter's legacy was secured not by wealth or status but by the lives he touched and the changes he inspired. His story was a call to action, to embrace diversity, to confront prejudice, and to lead with empathy and integrity. The shocking turn that began with a misjudged farmer buying a jet had ignited a movement. Walter's journey proved that with resilience and vision, anyone could rewrite their story and uplift an entire community. Walter's influence continued to grow, expanding far beyond the fields and skies he once knew. The story of a black farmer who turned prejudice into opportunity became a powerful narrative of transformation, inspiring countless individuals facing their own battles against systemic bias and exclusion. Walter embraced this responsibility wholeheartedly, evolving from a local hero into a national symbol of change. He understood that true equality required a collective effort. Walter began forming alliances with civil rights organizations, educational institutions, and policy makers to create sustainable support systems for marginalized communities. His efforts centered on mentorship and empowerment, building pathways for underrepresented voices in agriculture, technology, and leadership roles. Walter launched a foundation dedicated to providing scholarships, resources, and training programs for young farmers from diverse backgrounds. This initiative bridged gaps in access and opportunity, ensuring that economic and racial barriers did not dictate who could succeed. Through this foundation, Walter mentored hundreds, emphasizing the importance of resilience, integrity, and community. His leadership style continued to be defined by empathy and accountability. Walter made it a point to visit farms and communities regularly, listening deeply to challenges and ideas. This hands-on approach fostered trust and collaboration, empowering others to take ownership of their growth. Walter's humility was a hallmark of his impact. He never lost sight of his roots or the people who supported him. Amid these successes, Walter faced fresh challenges. Resistance from powerful interests still lingered, manifesting in bureaucratic obstacles and subtle attempts to stall reforms. Yet, Walter remained undeterred. He used every setback as a learning opportunity, refining his advocacy tactics and expanding his network. Walter's resilience inspired a cultural shift across multiple sectors. Companies and organizations began re-evaluating their diversity policies, spurred by the example he set. His story catalyzed conversations about equity that moved beyond token gestures, pushing for systemic change. Walter advocated not just for inclusion but for the celebration of diversity as a driver of innovation and growth. He also fostered a new generation of leaders through mentorship programs focused on personal and professional development. Walter believed leadership was about service, not status. His men's absorbed this lesson, many emerging as influential voices in their own right, spreading Walter's message of hope and transformation. Walter's commitment to advocacy was matched by his dedication to community healing. He hosted forums and workshops addressing racial prejudice and economic inequality, creating safe spaces for dialogue and reconciliation. These efforts helped break down long-standing barriers of mistrust, forging alliances across racial and economic lines. Walter's story became a beacon of inspiration for those fighting against injustice. His journey illustrated that heroism lies not only in grand gestures but in everyday acts of courage and compassion. He showed that growth is possible when accountability meets forgiveness, and when leadership embraces empathy. His personal life reflected this transformation as well. Walter built a close-knit family environment grounded in respect, inclusivity, and shared purpose. He taught his children and grandchildren the value of hard work, integrity, and standing up for what is right. This legacy of values promised to endure for generations. Walter's farm continued to serve as a living laboratory of innovation and inclusion. New technologies were integrated with sustainable practices, creating a model of agriculture that balanced productivity with environmental stewardship. This approach attracted attention from global experts, further amplifying Walter's influence. the jet remained a symbol of progress and connection. Walter used it to reach remote areas, bringing resources and education to underserved populations. Each flight represented a step toward bridging divides and building a more equitable future. Walter's transformation was not just personal, it was societal. His journey challenged entrenched norms and expanded the definition of success. He proved that leadership rooted in empathy, accountability, and resilience could reshape communities and industries. In every speech and interaction, Walter emphasized that true equality requires ongoing commitment. It is not a destination but a continuous process of learning, growing, and advocating. His life's work embodied this principle, inspiring others to join the movement. Walter's legacy was becoming firmly established, a testament to the power of courage, vision, and unwavering dedication. He demonstrated that when individuals rise above prejudice and discrimination, they can spark waves of change that uplift entire communities. The shocking turn that began with Walter buying a jet had become a catalyst for profound transformation. His story challenged assumptions, dismantled barriers, and inspired a cultural shift toward inclusion and justice. Walter's leadership ensured that the seeds he planted would grow into a forest of opportunity. His influence reached far beyond agriculture, touching fields of education, technology, and social justice. He proved that one person's resilience could become a movement's momentum. As Walter looked to the future, he remained committed to nurturing growth, both in the land he farmed and the communities he served. His journey was a powerful reminder that change begins with belief, is sustained by action, and flourishes through shared humanity. Walter's story would continue to inspire, reminding all that equality and progress are within reach when courage meets conviction. His legacy was a call to lead with empathy, advocate with integrity, and persevere with resilience. Walter's journey culminated in a legacy that transcended his individual achievements. The impact he had on his community and beyond was a testament to the transformative power of resilience, leadership, and unyielding commitment to justice and equality. Every step he took, from facing racism at the jet dealership to building a foundation that uplifted countless lives, shaped a new narrative, one where diversity was not just accepted but celebrated as a vital force for growth. Walter's story became a blueprint for empowerment, showing that humility and strategic vision could dismantle prejudice and inspire systemic change. His ability to confront discrimination with grace and intelligence won him allies across sectors and backgrounds. This coalition championed policies and initiatives that leveled the playing field for marginalized farmers and entrepreneurs nationwide. His mentorship programs flourished, producing leaders who carried forward his ethos of empathy and accountability. These protégés embodied Walter's belief that true leadership serves others, nurturing talent and encouraging growth within communities. Many of them became advocates themselves, expanding the reach of Walter's influence and igniting further cultural shift. Walter's farm transformed into a hub of innovation and inclusion, attracting researchers, activists, and students eager to learn from his model of sustainable agriculture combined with social advocacy. It became a symbol of what is possible when tradition meets progress, and when success is shared rather than hoarded. The jet that once sparked suspicion and ridicule now represented opportunity and unity. Walter used it to connect disparate communities, bringing education, resources, and hope to places often forgotten by mainstream society. His vision for the future included bridging divides and fostering collaboration on a scale few had imagined. Walter remained grounded, always remembering the struggles that shaped him. He practiced forgiveness, healing old wounds with those who had doubted or opposed him. This magnanimity strengthened the bonds of community and underscored the power of empathy in leadership. His story continued to inspire beyond borders, becoming a rallying cry for equality and justice in diverse arenas. Walter's narrative emphasized that transformation is not linear but requires persistence, courage, and a willingness to embrace discomfort for growth. Walter's legacy was not just in policies changed or programs launched, but in the hearts and minds he touched. His life was a testament to the human capacity for change, both personal and collective. He proved that facing adversity with dignity and strategic action can redefine what it means to lead. Walter's example challenged others to examine their own biases and roles within systems of power. His advocacy sparked conversations about equity that moved beyond superficial fixes to address root causes of discrimination and exclusion. He showed that resilience is more than enduring hardship. It is about using that experience to fuel meaningful progress. Walter's journey was a beacon for those striving to break cycles of injustice and build a more inclusive future. As he looked back, Walter took pride not in the jet or the grant but in the community that had rallied around him. Their shared victories were the true markers of success, proof that leadership grounded in empathy and integrity can reshape societies. Walter's story was a powerful reminder that no matter one's starting point, growth and transformation are possible. His legacy was a call to action, to lead with heart, advocate with courage, and build bridges where walls once stood. The shocking turn of events that began with a misunderstanding at a jet dealership had become a movement toward equality, inclusion, and empowerment. Walter's life showed that through vision and perseverance, individuals could inspire change far beyond their immediate circumstances. This legacy would endure, passed down through generations taught to value diversity, embrace leadership as service, and pursue justice relentlessly. Walter's impact was a lasting gift, a roadmap for those who seek to transform adversity into opportunity. His journey encapsulated the essence of heroism not as fame or fortune but as everyday acts of courage, empathy, and commitment to the greater good. Walter's story stood as a beacon, lighting the path for others to follow. In the end, Walter's life was a testament to the power of resilience, transformation, and shared humanity. It proved that when people come together to uplift one another, the possibilities are boundless.